Welcome to Training Tuesday. It is Tuesday night. It is 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And so we are here for Training Tuesday. I'm happy to be with you tonight. I am in a great mood today. It's actually been a very productive day. And part of my productive day was actually meeting with a former coaching client and having a nosh with her. And I love that. I love being able to stay in touch with you guys long term. And because I worked with her a couple of years ago. And being able to see just kind of where you've come, like where you're at, where you're going, where you've come in the time that we've worked together. And it was just an awful lot of fun. So I'm in a good mood because my afternoon was a good time. So, hey, Rita, it's good to see you. So it is Tuesday. Tonight we are talking about how to be heard with authority and to stop undermining ourselves when we speak. One of the reasons I wanted to focus on this topic is it's actually come up a few times in conversations in the past couple weeks where women have been asking me more about skills for presenting, for how do they present or how do they have a difficult conversation at work and things like that. And so I wanted to be sure we tackled it because some of the patterns that crop up when we speak up are ones that we're not conscious of, or we might be like a little conscious of it, but not really focused on the impact that these patterns have. We recognize it, but maybe we're not diverting any energy to working towards changing that pattern because we don't realize just how much of an impact it can have. So that is what I wanted to talk about tonight. So we're going to talk tonight about three common communication patterns that are actually misfires. And then we're going to bust a myth, but I think you guys know this, but we're going to frame it that way because it sounds more exciting. We're going to bust a myth around women in communication. So welcome tonight. Hey, Jackie and Joyce, good to see you guys as well. My name is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting and your coach. And if you haven't joined us before, welcome to Training Tuesday. We are here every Tuesday night. Love for everybody to say hi, just like Rita, Jackie, and Joyce did, and introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you are listening in from, and sharing all of that. If you're doing it on the replay, do that as well, because we do all in this community pay attention to the comments in the replay as well. But these trainings are always way more fun when they are interactive. So as we're talking about these three communication patterns tonight, I invite you to share your stories, ask your questions, make your comments. I try to follow the comments as much as possible so that we can have that dialogue. All right, so I wanted to start with, I was thinking about this when I was thinking about these three communication patterns. One of the ways this became flagged for me is that I used to work for a guy. Hey, Janet, good to see you. I used to work with a guy. Actually, he was on my team. He worked for me. And every time we were in a meeting and presenting information or sharing information, he would always repeat what I said. Like somebody would ask him for his comment or his thoughts, or just he would just volunteer afterwards. But whenever he spoke up, he was like repeating exactly what I said, but maybe using slightly different words. And I used to look at him and think, and forgive me for this because this is my judgment coming through, but I would look at him and think, is he stupid? Like, why is he just repeating? Like, he was a parrot. He was my own personal parrot, just repeating kind of the stuff that I say. So I'm curious if any of you know a guy like this or a woman like this, but somebody who just, every time you make a statement or say something, they're right there on your shoulder repeating the exact same thing. And hey, Jill, it's good to see you. So this is one of those situations that made me aware, because sometimes he would be my personal parrot. So I would say something where I'd present a plan and he would come in and he would repeat what I said. And sometimes the whole meeting we would just move right along, which is great. Sometimes he would repeat what I just said, and then someone else in the room would say, "Oh, that's a good idea, Jack. Yeah, I agree with Jack." And then I would go, what did I just say? Like, what did I just say? What do I think I said? What did they actually hear in this whole exchange where I said something, Jack is the one who repeated it, and they all think now it's Jack's great idea? So have you guys ever experienced that, any of you? Do you know what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about having your own personal parrot? that moment, drop a Y for me in the chat. Like, talk to me, people. If this is a scenario you have lived through, and I've lived through this multiple times, slightly different ways, but this idea of being in a meeting and speaking up and yet not being heard, like feeling like nobody has any idea what they have no idea what I just said. I was just saying words. So thank you, Janet. What this did, though, is it raised for me questions around, okay, what am I saying? How am I saying it that people aren't hearing me? At least not in the way that I think, right? Because they only heard Jack's restatement of what I said. They didn't hear my original thoughts. So I did a whole bunch of research on this topic, and it's a topic. Communication and how we women communicate and how we show up is obviously something I'm going to look into anyway. But like when this was my career, earlier in my career, and I was like, what's going on? Right? I did a lot of research into trying to figure out why I could have these great ideas and these great thoughts and yet never seem to get the credit. And it was incredibly frustrating. And that is a complaint I do hear from a lot of you in the group, right? It's just that you speak up and it's like nobody pays attention or nobody hears you, or worse, you've repeated yourself multiple times about something that you need or something that has to happen or a great idea, and nobody even acknowledges, right, that this came from you. So I am going to share some of the research of our communication misfires. Now, if you're in my group coaching course, we actually have a section where we go a little bit deeper. There's eight. There's 8 communication misfires that are really common in women and their speech patterns. We're going to tackle 3 tonight. We don't have time to go through all 8, but there are 3 tonight that I thought we could talk about because it's 3 different ways that we undermine ourselves, and it's also 3 different types of situations where this shows up. So one is in the way that we ask a question or request something. The second way we're going to talk about is the way in which we share an idea or thought, the way we're forthcoming with it. And the third is the way that we reframe our own ideas and thoughts. So the second two are similar, but you'll see what I'm talking about when I get into detail about those. So 3 ways that we can stop undermining ourselves and start communicating with more power. The first one, it's a no-brainer, except that it's not. So the first one is how we ask a question or how we request something. If you had to guess, put it for me in the chat. What is the word or phrase we use the most to undermine ourselves? It's a word. We also put it in a phrase. It is the number one thing we say that right off the bat, before we say anything else, this phrase comes out and we undermine ourselves. If you had to guess, put it in the chat for me, what would that word or phrase be? Because you all know it. You all do it. I still do it. It's something that we have to catch ourselves with. Are there no guesses, really? What would you have to say? Bingo! Joyce and Jackie win. Sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry. The thing with I'm sorry and the why it's so dangerous is because we use it all the time, and most of the time we don't hear ourselves. Yeah, and it's usually a sorry but. Sorry to bother you, but. That's a great combination. Sorry if, this is a silly question, but. Sorry, but I just need. We apologize. Why do we apologize? Why do you think that comes out of our mouths so often? Because we're apologizing for everything. Everything. We apologize when we ask something of someone else. We apologize when we have something to say. I'm sorry, I need a minute of your time. We apologize for taking up space. We apologize for speaking out loud. We apologize for having a question. We apologize because we're curious. We apologize because we need something. We need more information. And the thing is, we're not truly sorry for what we're asking for. We're not actually sorry for needing the information. We're not sorry for having the question. We're not sorry that something else needs to happen. We are sorry. We are sorry for the inconvenience to the other person. We have been so well trained to not inconvenience other people that what we're actually apologizing for is that we are requesting something of them, interrupting something that they're doing, needing any ounce of their energy for us to achieve our own goals, our own mission. So we're apologizing for ourselves having a need that might slightly inconvenience the other person. I'm sorry is so pervasive. We all use it. We use it all the time, and so destructive because it immediately puts you as the underdog in any conversation. It immediately says, I am not coming at you from a position of authority or strength or power. Now, I'm not talking about playing manipulative mind games with other people, because this perception that we're coming in as the underdog or we're coming in without authority or power, it's subconscious. The person who we're speaking to knows we're not actually sorry. They also know she's not sorry to take a minute. She's not sorry that she needs this thing from me. She's being polite. But that's the surface level. The subtext is an understanding of they're apologizing to me. I have the upper hand because I can say no. Because I can stonewall. It's the subtext that's dangerous, because that immediately relays a signal to the other person that they are the person in power in that conversation. And if we're going to speak from a position of power, we have to own the position. Yeah, and we say that all the time, Joyce, right? I'm sorry, but I actually need you to do your job. You're not sorry. The phrase is, I need you to do your job. It's a very big difference when you say to somebody, I'm sorry, but can I have a minute of your time? The way we say the words is different than if we say, hi, I need 5 minutes. It's very different. And it's not rude. It's not rude. It's not rude. It's not inconsiderate. It's not any of those things. So one is, I'm sorry. That's one speech pattern that just from the get-go completely undermines anything else that comes out of our mouth afterwards. The other speech pattern is when we're sharing a thought or an idea and we use a phrase. And we might use the phrase, all right, this sounds stupid, but. It's that nasty but again. I know you're the expert here, but. I'm just speaking off the top of my head, so take it with a grain of salt. But. We're presenting an idea with a disclaimer. With a disclaimer. Why are we using disclaimers? First of all, do any of you, just let me know in the chat, do any of you do that? Do any of you do the whole, put a phrase in front of it? Put a longer phrase in front of it. Not I'm sorry, but a qualifier. That's what a disclaimer is. It's the qualifier for what's coming next. We use disclaimers in two ways. One, false humility. False humility. And two, false protection. False protection. So with the false humility, we don't want the other person to feel bad about themselves, to feel lesser than. So we put this disclaimer in front that makes us sound a little less smart. That makes us sound like we're questioning ourselves even though we know it's a freaking brilliant idea. We don't own that because we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. So we put a disclaimer in so the rest of the room feels more comfortable. That's false humility. We know we have a great idea, but instead of owning, hey, I have this idea, this is it. I know you're the expert. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but, right? We put the disclaimer out there. The second one is the false protection. I know you're the expert. Same phrases. We just use them depending on what our need is in the moment, how we're reading the room in the moment. The second disclaimer I know you're the expert. There's all kinds of that we put out there, but I know you're the expert. Or I'm just thinking about this, or I just had this idea, and it's probably not very good, or I haven't thought this through yet. But it's because we're protecting ourselves from what we're afraid the judgment will be. I know this is a freaking brilliant idea, but that imposter voice in your head says, "But is it?" But what if they don't like it? We are afraid of judgment. So we start the conversation by saying, you know what? This idea already sucks. This idea already sucks, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. And then if you guys love it, lo and behold, maybe it doesn't suck so much. We protect ourselves. We protect our ego. We protect what we think. How we rationalize it is we're protecting our reputation. We're protecting our position of power, but we're actually undermining ourselves because we're constantly letting people know, I feel insecure and uncomfortable. In the first one, when we use disclaimers, we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable with our own sense of, hey, I'm creative, I'm smart, I was strategically thoughtful. Heaven forbid we own that. And in the second case, we are insecure and uncomfortable with ourselves, and we don't want to be judged. So we use disclaimers. So that's number 2 of how we present an idea and then undermine ourselves. Number 3 is the way that we reframe. We reframe ideas. And we think when we do this one, we think we are strategically playing small. A lot of times we'll use this as a strategy, thinking that we're being clever about how we're playing the room. But I promise you that it hurts you more than it helps you because we overuse it. We absolutely overuse it. So this is a misfire that happens when we reframe our idea, we reframe our thought as a question. We make it a question. So instead of saying, listen, we need to do idea A, call it idea A. We need to do idea A because that idea is actually within our budget and we can still hit our goals with that idea. Okay, that's me stating an opinion. We need to use this idea. We need to hit idea A. I should use a different word. Project. We need to work on project A because project A allows us to hit our goals and hit our budget. When I'm using this strategy of framing it as a question, instead what I'll say is, hey guys, have we thought about idea A as carefully as we should? Have we thought about project A as much as we should? Or maybe we should look at project A a little more carefully. So we don't make the statement of, guys, this is what I think and this is what we should do. We lob a question out there to get everyone else thinking about it. Now here's why this one is tricky. When you put the question out there instead of the statement, this is what the scenario looks like, all right? With scenarios is everybody is discussing idea B. Idea B is the leading idea. And you say, I think we should reconsider. Don't you think we should reconsider Project A a little bit? I mean, maybe Project A is a little more budget friendly? Then my friend Jack the parrot says, we should definitely revisit Project A. Project A fits our budget and we can still hit our goals. That's what I said. I said we should consider Project A because it's more budget friendly. But Jack reset it as a statement and the conversation goes, Jack's right. We need to talk about Project A. Jack gets all the credit for the idea because he made it a statement, because he championed the idea. What you just got really known for, what you're building your reputation on when you do that, is you ask really good questions. You're thoughtful, you ask good questions, but Jack came home with the idea, Project A. So he gets the credit. There are moments, that's why I said this one is tricky. There are moments when framing the idea as a question does strategically make sense. If you are coaching someone or mentoring someone and you're trying to show them a different way of thinking rather than telling them what to do, so you're not their boss, you're their mentor, you might frame an idea as a question and have them go away and think about it. That would be one scenario. Another scenario would be if you truly don't care who gets the credit, or it's politically important that someone else gets the credit. And if you work in a highly political environment, that can happen. Then you frame an idea as a question and you let somebody pick up that ball and run with it. But that's the one you have to be really careful about, and that's the one that we overuse. What we think, especially going into group conversations and group situations, is we think that by framing it as the question, we're being generous. We're being kinder. We're being a little bit softer, right? What are the things we worry about? We worry about being liked. So we soften our language so much. If you look at all 8 of our communication misfires, in fact, it's really all about we soften our language, all with making other people more comfortable. But when we soften our language, we soften it so much that people don't know what we're saying, and they're certainly not giving us credit for it. So with number 2, with the second scenario of using it for political reasons, be really careful when you're going to actually give your idea away for someone else to own. Like, do that consciously. Because 90% of the time, even in those highly political environments, I guarantee you 90% of the time, you are better off stating and claiming your idea rather than lobbing it out there for other people to snap up. If you are playing so much politics that you're actually undermining your own career, you aren't playing politics. You just gave up. That's what happens. We soften our language so much. We think we're playing the political game. We think we're playing the strategically nice game. We're being the big boss. So we're being a good boss because we're not claiming all the credit. We're not claiming all the ideas. But we do it so much that we undermine ourselves. And now we're the boss with no ideas. We're the boss who gives credit to everybody else. And we get nothing that we put on our resume that moves us forward to the next project, to the next job, to the next promotion, or to the next raise. One of the things we have to be more conscious of as women who are owning our careers is owning our ideas and our credit, which means, yes, as a good boss, you're going to share the glory. You're going to mentor people. You're going to get people moving along with your ideas. You're going to use influence, but you've also got to own your stuff. If you are playing small for political reasons, it means that you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong work environment. When you truthfully to play politics at work, and work politics, you either love them or hate them. But work politics, it's a game. And if you're not using the game to advance your career, then you are in the wrong job, and stop playing the politics. Go find the job and the environment that works for you. All right. That's a whole other aside. Let's get back to the 3 communication misfires. We say we're sorry, we use disclaimers, and we turn our statements into questions. So just a poll, ladies, in the chat. Which one of these is the one you use the most? You can just use 1, 2, or 3. 1 is you say I'm sorry. 2 is you use disclaimers. 3 is you end up turning your statements or your ideas into questions. Give me a 1, 2, or 3 in the comments of which one is the one you think that you probably use or overuse the most. And I will tell you, when we go through this in the group coaching, a lot of women come back and say all 8, all 8. 3, Pam, 3. Okay, turning statements into questions. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Jackie, 2 or 3. Yeah, a lot of women say, I use all 8 of them. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. Again, these are speech patterns. These speech patterns are prevalent, and they're prevalent because this is how we were raised. So this is where I get into sort of the myth busting. That's not really myth busting because you guys know this, but we've got to tackle it anyway. Right? So let's talk about the why. The why do we do these things? Why do these speech patterns exist? You know why. We talk about it every week in this group. Right? It's how we are taught. The myth that we are taught growing up is that we have to be nice to be accepted. Not only do we have to be nice to be accepted, but the definition of nice is that we have to be the good girl. All the good girl patterns, because if we don't soften our language, if we don't let other people take credit, if we don't gently ask for the things that we want, we won't be liked, we'll be judged, we'll be told that we're being difficult, that we're being strident, that we're being a bitch. And I use that word lightly because Facebook doesn't actually like swearing. We soften our approach because we don't want to be excluded. Don't get anybody upset. They'll exclude us from future meetings or future conversations. We worry that we'll get talked about. Other people are going to talk about us and tell other people that we're obnoxious or we're too loud or we're too much. It all comes down to we won't be loved if we are not a good girl. And if we don't behave the way we're supposed to behave, we will not be accepted and we will not be loved. But here's what else happens. We also won't be heard, we will not be seen, and we will not get things done. If we continue to play in the good girl patterns, we will not be seen or heard, and we will not be able to get things done. If you broke any one of those 3 communication habits, if you changed the way that you spoke so that you didn't say I'm sorry so much, so that you stopped turning statements into questions, are you being rude? Are you being obnoxious? Are you being egotistical or mean by claiming your idea? That's what we worry about, right? But when you hear other people do it, and you hear men do it all day long, and you hear other women do it. When you hear them do it, your first thought isn't, oh, she's so egotistical. Oh, he's grasping for glory. Sometimes we think that. It depends on how obnoxious they are about it. It doesn't have to be obnoxious when you do it, though, right? So you have to ask yourself, who do you want to be? When you walk into that next meeting, when you lead that next project, or when you're just participating in a team meeting, who do you want to be perceived as? Because the only way to break through these misfires is practice. And the only way to practice is to start breaking it down. So my recommendation is for any one of those misfires, pick one. Just pick one. So Joyce, I saw that you said 3, although I can combine all 3. I guarantee you we are all guilty of all 3 of those at some time or another. And there's probably a couple of the misfires out of the full 8. There's probably a couple of them that are more of a habit for you. We don't change the way that we speak, especially when it's a speech pattern that's taken decades for us to develop. Doesn't happen overnight. So you pick one. You just pick one. And in fact, you pick the easiest one, the one that you recognize the most, you hear yourself the most, and you say, that's the one I need to be the most aware of. And step 1 is just be aware of it. Step 2 is that you take a minute and you write down your alternate phrase. So if you're not going to say I'm sorry, do you need to replace that with something else? Because here's the thing, you'll always go and you'll be biting your tongue if that's always the first word out of your mouth. So what if instead of I'm sorry, you started thinking about what's an alternate phrase? What is an alternate phrase to I'm sorry? You could say, excuse me. Excuse me is at least an interrupter. It's at least an interrupter, but you're not apologizing. It's a little bit better than I'm sorry. So I consider it a baby step, but sometimes when you're changing habits, you don't cut the habit cold turkey, right? You replace it with a new habit. You replace it because we're in that pattern. So if there's another phrase you can think of other than I'm sorry, you start with that. Maybe it's just good morning. Maybe it's not I'm sorry, do you have a minute? Maybe it's good morning, have a minute, right? Good afternoon. That always works, right? Just hello. But write down, if I'm not saying I'm sorry, what's the phrase I am saying? If I'm not going to use a disclaimer, what am I going to do or say instead? And maybe with a disclaimer, since those are longer sentences, that's more of you're going to breathe and think about your opening sentence before you open your mouth, right? But you need to write down what's your alternate practice. And I said, write it down, because once you write it down, we solidify what's happening here. physical action. It makes a connection. It makes it more real for us. And then we practice. You have to practice it because you're going to screw it up for the first 30 times. You're still going to say, I'm sorry 50 times in a week, but next week you're only going to say it 45 times. Got to practice. Third piece. So 1, identify the one you're going to start with. 2, write down your alternate approach. Start practicing it. Practice it in the mirror. Practice it with a friend. 3rd is get the friend. 3rd is you need an accountability buddy. If there is somebody who is on these Zoom calls with you or in the meetings with you or who's just a friend who knows you, who knows that this is a speech pattern, maybe you only see them on Saturday afternoons for coffee. That's fine. But you need somebody who is going to hold you accountable to the promise you made to break the pattern. So that when you're on the Zoom call and they hear you say, I'm sorry, or they hear you use a disclaimer, they're sending you a private message saying, hey, cut that out. They're flagging it for you. So that when you're having coffee on a Saturday afternoon and it's a casual conversation and you drop the I'm sorry in, or you're telling them about the conversation, they can stop you and say, so how did you share that idea? How did you speak up at that meeting? And you have to go back and think, did I say those words? It makes us more conscious. The more we raise our awareness and our consciousness about the words that we're using, the easier it becomes for us to identify it in the moment, and do something different. So if it helps at all, and this is one that I think about a lot, right? There's a quote that floats all over the internet that has been attributed to 50 different women, and the quote is, well-behaved women seldom make history. Actual author of that quote is someone you've never heard of. It's not Eleanor Roosevelt. It's Dr. Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. She was a professor of American history at Harvard, and she wrote it in a scholarly article in 1976. And what she was writing about in this article was about women in American history, how often they were overlooked when they lived within the paradigm that they were forced to live in. They lived within the culture. They were well behaved. They followed all the rules. They did all the things. The only women who ever get pulled out in history as notable or interesting were the women who broke the rules. Now, we are in modern era where we have a lot more rights and a lot more freedom. So I am not asking you to misbehave. I'm asking you to speak up, right? Own your space. Own who you want to be as a leader. And when I say leader, I'm not talking about you have to have a job title. I'm talking about own how you want to run your life, because that's really what this is all about. We apply this to our careers because that's the first and easiest place to apply it to. But trust me, when you start building these patterns in your careers, you start building these patterns in how you live your life and make your choices there too. So just remember that well-behaved women seldom make history, and whatever history you want to look back on for your life, you're the one in charge of that. All right, so that was our training for tonight. Thank you for joining me. Before I let you go, quick reminder. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, so same time as Training Tuesday, but on Wednesday, we have a master class, free class. We're going to go deeper, though, into imposter syndrome. So tomorrow night's master class is from imposter syndrome to leadership superpowers in 5 confident moves. So what I'm going to talk about tomorrow night are 5 ways we can reframe some really common imposter syndrome stories, right? There are some stories with imposter syndrome that we tell ourselves about being perfect, about having to be available all the time, right? It affects our work-life balance. It affects the way we collaborate with other people. So there's 5 common stories we tell ourselves. And I want to reframe those so that when those stories come up, we're not slapping our imposter down. We're not trying to automatically completely do a 180 shift of old patterns. Like these are patterns we've had for decades. But what we're doing is a slight twist and a reframe to say, yeah, that pattern exists. Here's how I can make it work for me. Or here's how I can make a shift so I don't fall into that. So that's what I want to talk about tomorrow night. So it's a master class tomorrow night. So I'm going to give you 2 words. 2 words. Let me know what you want. First word is misfire. If you would like the cheat sheet, I can just give you the single cheat sheet of the full 8 communication misfires. Drop the word misfire in the comments and I will send that your way. That is something that we do cover in my group coaching program. We go into a little more detail in the group coaching. There's some training that goes along with it. But you can at least get the cheat sheet that tells you what the 8 are. The second word is masterclass. If you haven't signed up for tomorrow night's masterclass at 6 o'clock Eastern time, talking about how we move from imposter syndrome to leadership superpowers, then drop masterclass in the comments and I will send you the link to register for tomorrow night's masterclass. So those are your 2 cues, misfire and masterclass. Awesome. I hope you guys have a fantastic Tuesday. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you, ladies. Behave appropriately instead of well behaved. I like that. Jackie's, what did you say? Oh, comments are moving. Hold on. I like to say thank you for your patience rather than I'm sorry, I'm late. Yeah, that's definitely a better way to frame it. Definitely a better way to frame it. And they feel good about themselves because they think they've been patient, right? So why not? All right, ladies, I will be looking at your notes and sending them back to you. And in the meantime, have a fabulous week. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow night at the masterclass.